Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. I'm Mary Preenon, author of I'm Lazy and I Love to Eat. And welcome once again to Phat Chat, the show that talks about healthy lifestyles. We have a really great guest today. Her name is Katrina Fox, and she is coming all the way from Australia. Wow. So let me tell you a little bit about Katrina before she comes on. She is an award-winning journalist, an author, PR consultant, and founder of veganbusinessmedia.com. She's also the host of Vegan Business Talk podcast, the author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Vegan Business, the first global book providing success strategies for aspiring and existing vegan business owners and entrepreneurs. And also, if that's not enough, Katrina is the founder of the plant-powered women's network.
It's been renamed. It's the Vegan Women's Leadership Network now.
Oh, okay. The Vegan Women's Leadership Network. Well, how do you sleep? You're so busy. Katrina, welcome to Phat Chat.
Thank you very much for having me, Mary. It's a pleasure to be here.
And so we're kind of a whole day apart in Australia.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's morning where I am and evening where you are.
And it's evening here. So this is great. And I have in the background, this is the beautiful Hudson River in Peekskill, New York, that people are looking at. It's a virtual background because you don't want to see my office. But Katrina, tell us all about how you got started being a vegan. Was it because of your love of animals, or was it for health reasons? Maybe just tell us about how that all came about.
Yeah. Sure. So in a nutshell, I'll keep it brief. I actually went vegetarian when I was 11. I didn't know the word at the time. It was obviously a very, very long time ago, because I found out, and I asked my mum, what's this beef burger made out of? And she said, oh, it's a cow. It was once a cow. And I remember being absolutely horrified. Now, I'm a city girl, so I, was brought up just outside of South London. I was born in London, and I was brought up just outside of South London on a council estate. So the only time I got to see, farmed animals was during the summer. I would go down and stay for a week or so with my cousin in the country. And I would just go off on my own. This was back in the day where, kids could just go off on their own. Right. And I would see cows in fields. I would give them apples, and I would just love it, because I was, I loved my cat. So when I made that connection, I was absolutely horrified. I'm like, how, why? So I said, and then I made the connection. Oh my gosh, the chicken that we have in, on Sundays. Oh my gosh, that was once a sweet, lovely chicken, and the fish fingers were made of fish. So I just at a very young age, I said, I'm not eating animals again. Of course, that didn't go down well. We're talking, let's say a long time ago. Right. I refused to eat them. So I was actually vegetarian for quite some time. It took a fair bit longer to go vegan, and only because I believed all the, billion-dollar dairy industry's propaganda that, cows willingly give their milk, and, I didn't know about any of that cruelty, about babies being stolen from their mothers, the female reproductive system being hijacked. I came to know about that in about 1996, so about 24 years ago. And I remember being horrified because I'd been involved in, the feminist movement. And for me, that just really hit home. Here I am campaigning for women to have, autonomy over their own bodies. And this industry, literally hijacks the female reproductive systems of these sentient beings. So I was absolutely horrified by dairy. So I was pretty much one of those people that kind of went vegan, quote, overnight, obviously with things like shoes and the leather. Took a little bit longer, but I did it very quick, as quickly as I could. I got my animal-free shopper from the UK Vegan Society and would take it to the supermarket, looking up all the ingredients. Is this one okay? It took me about, a bit longer to do my shopping. But once I got the hang of it and you start to learn more and more, then, I got into a routine. But, that was 24 years ago. It wasn't the easiest time time, but I know people like one particular company in the UK, Plamel. It's the oldest UK vegan company. The owner, he died, but I met him in the 90s. He went vegan in 1927. So whenever I,
Wow.
think, oh, it was hard for me back then, there's people I know, who've been vegan, way longer, 40, 50, 60 years, whatever even. So, but even so, it wasn't that easy back then, but of course nowadays it's so much
There's
easier, and
so much more.
I'm just delighted with the way it's going, and that people are just there's so many more products available, and people are starting to become more open to it, which I think is wonderful, because ultimately it's better. My reasons were totally ethical. Any health benefits, environmental benefits, I was like, great, bonus. But for me, it's all been about the animals.
Well, tell us, I think a lot of people, including myself, sometimes get confused about what is a vegetarian and what is a vegan. Could you maybe explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's different types of vegetarians as well. So there's see, I think in certain cultures like India, if I'm like, the word vegetarian is actually can actually be similar to vegan, like the word kind of on its own. But I think in the West, vegetarian is typically used to mean lacto-ovo vegetarian. So a vegetarian, quote, in the West typically won't eat meat, any
Right.
meat, and that includes fish and chicken, etc. So no meat, but they will probably dairy and eggs, for example.
And right.
And also they may, like they may wear leather. Like when I was vegetarian, before I, got the meat, I was wearing leather. I was eating cheese that didn't have any animal rennet in it. So I think that's kind of the main difference with vegetarian. Then there's pescatarian, which is people who maybe don't eat any meat, but they eat
They eat
fish.
a lot of
Yeah, so
fish.
that's
That's where I
pescatarian.
am kind of on
Right.
that realm.
Yeah. So basically, a vegan is basically the way, and I love the UK Vegan Society's definition of this, because I think it's really inclusive and realistic, and it's basically, and I'm paraphrasing it, so nobody's going to write in and go, that's not exactly what they said, but basically, it's about doing the least possible harm to avoid animal exploitation in all its forms, as much as is reasonably and practically possible. So, for example, if I have a car, the brake fluid might have been tested on animals. I don't really have a lot of control over that. But if I'm going to
Right.
buy, makeup, or, something, or, a jacket, I'm not going to buy a leather jacket. I'm going to make sure the makeup is vegan, and, the skincare products, the personal care products, cleaning products, the shoes, the clothes. You start to kind of, one of the things that shocked me when I got my little animal free shopper guide way back when was just how much we exploit and commodify and use animals and all their different parts. It was quite a shock. So, but like I say, I think things are changing. We're seeing massive change in the food space. The fashion industry now is starting to really kind of, under that sustainability banner, is also bringing in cruelty-free vegan fashion, which I think is exciting. So basically, it's about living your life as much as possible without contributing as much as you practically and reasonably can to animal exploitation, commodification, violence, etc.
And
Yeah.
I think, even when you go to the grocery store, I'm from New York here, there's so many more options now that, you can say, all right, well, I'm going to try this. Let me try this. But maybe if somebody, like we were talking before the show about, like myself, I'm probably more like a pescatarian. I do eat some chicken. I do try to incorporate more vegetarian meals into my diet because it is healthier. How can somebody like me, or maybe who's just interested in it, make that change? Because I know you did it very quickly, but how can they gradually make that change? And maybe you could suggest some things, like if somebody has like a turkey sandwich for lunch every day, or what they could substitute to kind of make their way to veganism.
Yeah, and of course, it depends who your audience is. So I just want to put a little proviso. So what I'm not suggesting, like if somebody's living in a food desert or living, really, really on low on the poverty line, that they go out and buy some of these high end, vegan cheeses or vegan
Right.
meats, because at the moment, simply because the animal agriculture industry has been so heavily subsidized, that's the only reason that dairy and meat is cheap. There's a price to pay. People are paying the price, in the
Right.
slaughterhouses, etc. Animals are paying the price. The the planet's paying a price. But however, that said, I'm not going to suggest that it's, because it is possible to be vegan even on a very low budget. So it just depends on what what your circumstances are. But for someone like you, Mary, obviously you're in New York, as you mentioned, one of my favorite cities. I've got family there. I love coming there. I'm hoping I'll get back there at some stage. We don't know when, because they're in the middle of the pandemic at the moment.
Right.
But there are so many choices, in the stores like Trader Joe's and even Walmart, like places like this, because there are companies that are, I know Beyond Meat is one of them, Just is another one. They're really trying to get those prices accessible so that they're on a par with the animal-based product. And I think we need that help from government, because I think given a choice, if it looks the same, tastes the same, smells the same, all of this basically as the animal-based counterpart, but this one is, not cruel and environmentally friendly and essentially better for you, why wouldn't you make the choice? But I think ultimately, like you said, if you have a turkey sandwich for lunch, substitute that. Have a look at, there are plant-based turkey slices now, give it a try, put that in your sandwich, and of course there's lots of recipe sites you can look at to substitute, because I think it's a case of getting over the myth that vegan food is boring and bland, because back in the day, it probably wasn't that exciting, but it's not all salads and lentils. It can be, and that's obviously nice and healthy, but it's about so much more than that. You can have, if you were having spaghetti and meatballs, there are now really like amazing plant-based versions that look, smell, taste, virtually the equivalent of the animal-based counterpart. So I think it's just going and looking, asking in your supermarket, asking them to get it in, because some of them I think are starting to get a bit more on board with that. Looking at if your budget can afford it, then look at specialist stores, like online vegan supermarkets, where you'll get, a massive range of like the vegan cheeses nowadays. Oh my God. I remember when vegan cheese used to taste like rubber. Now there's like so many choices, but still you go into the supermarket and you look at the amount of dairy choices versus the amount of plant-based choices in the big stores. We've still got a long way to go, but developments are certainly happening. So I think it's a case of changing your mindset as well, and just being willing to give it a go. Because if you tried something 10 years ago, like a vegan burger or a vegan cheese 10 years ago, you might have it in your head, oh, vegan cheeses are boring. So kind of do a different mindset, change that, try all the different plant-based milks. But, it is fairly easy to substitute now. I mean, one thing I did to kind of get it, and it depends why you're coming at it as well. See, when I first went vegan, that didn't mean I suddenly stopped wanting like a Twix bar, like a chocolate. In England we used to have these lovely Twix bars with caramel and chocolate inside, and I remember being at the petrol gas station, as you call it in America, and they would be there, the confectionaries right then. I remember thinking, oh gosh, I really fancy a Twix. But then in my mind, I pictured a cow being hooked up to a milking machine, bellowing with grief as a baby stole it. And so I associated that with the Twix bar. And then I was like, I don't want it anymore. Now you if you give me a vegan Twix or a vegan chocolate, I'm like, take it. So I think partly as well, if you are someone who cares about animals, to just instead of seeing that turkey sandwich and thinking about your taste buds, like see the turkey, go and have a look at some lovely videos like online of like, the animal sanctuaries where you can see, the birds, just living life, and just kind of, it can just help you to disassociate or change your perception around animals. But yeah, just really kind of just give those plant-based versions a go, because there are different ones. Even if you tried a vegan cheese now and you're like, oh, I'm not quite sure about that one, there's so many now that you can try. Yeah.
And I think that there's enough choices now that you can get, enough protein, because I know, some of the argument against, veganism or vegetarianism, oh, I'm not going to get enough protein. But with all
it's
the
such a myth
there,
though. If you look at it, like gorillas, hippopotamus, they're vegan essentially. Are they suffering from a lack of protein? I think you can actually get, I mean, even if you didn't have any, you don't even need to have these plant-based meats if you don't, particularly want them. It's just a case of, adjusting your diet to ensure that you're getting those nutrients. And I think, and I'm not a health professional, so I'm not going to be, saying that, but I know certainly from Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, which are an amazing group of medical doctors who've been studying plant-based eating for more than 30 years. They've got a whole ton of research. And, if you look at what they say, it's perfectly possible. And a lot of people who eat a standard American diet, for example, are probably getting too much protein or, too much of things.
Yes. Hmm.
So yeah, those are definitely myths. Obviously, everybody's different. You need to find the way of eating that's right for you. But I think for the vast majority of people, you can do that in a plant-based manner that's going to be good for you and
And do you
enjoyable as
feel, I
well.
mean, you certainly look healthy. Do you feel healthier eating this type of diet?
I've been vegan for 24 years now. I can't remember what it was like not to, so I don't know. But, to be fair, like when I went vegetarian, because, like I say, I grew up on a council flat. So my mum didn't make fresh food. Like we were in the era of processed food. So, it would be a packet of, she substituted, the fish fingers, which were basically, these processed things with frozen in
Right,
batter and
right,
frozen
yeah.
with cheese pancakes, and things like that. So, and for dessert, we'd have like a tin of peaches with, some tinned custard. Like, I kind of grew up on a bit of a processed diet. So when I went vegetarian, I was predominantly a junk food vegetarian. Then when I went vegan for the kind of few years, I was mainly just eating that. And then as the years have gone on, and yes, of course, yes, I have a salad for my lunch every day. But, if I want a naughty treat, like I am so happy now, I can finally, after 24 years, I can go to Pizza Hut and order a vegetarian pizza and actually have vegan cheese on it,
Oh,
or,
okay,
I might
great.
want I might want a cheeseburger with some fries with cheese sauce. I can get all
Hmm.
that now vegan. So of course, I want to have a naughty treat. So if you're someone who, likes a steak, or like you said, the turkey, slices and what have you, all of that is possible. And I know some people kind of go, oh, but they're so processed. But look, animal foods are highly, highly processed. A lot of the animals that die have got cancer tumors in them. You're literally eating tumors.
Yeah.
Dairy,
Oh,
you're allowed to have,
yeah.
well, you're eating bits of animal like their butts, you know what I mean? And it's like with dairy, there is a certain amount, you're allowed to have a certain amount, in certain countries, of infected pustules and blood. Do you know what I mean? It's
Oh,
like, why
doesn't
would you
sound
want
very appetizing.
exactly? So when people kind of go, oh, but those, vegan ones, they're really processed. They might be processed, but animal-based foods are, and animal-based foods will often have antibiotics, hormones, the whole lot. Even the so-called organic ones, they all end up at the awful, horrific slaughterhouse, in terrible conditions. And you're eating that. You're eating all that fear as well. My argument is, look, no one's going to claim that a burger of any kind, a burger and fries of any kind is not, quote, a health food. But the plant-based version, I would argue it's still going to be that bit better for you, certainly better for the planet. And there's been research around that, and certainly better for the animals. So, yeah.
Now we have, it really sounds, it sounds doable. It sounds easy the way that you have, put it together for us. We have a few minutes left, and I wanted to find out a little bit about the new the women's network that you're putting together.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thank you. So it's called the Vegan Women's Leadership Network, and it's something I pre-launched it during lockdown, actually, in March
Okay.
2020, because, obviously the world kind of went to hell in a handbasket, with
Yes.
COVID-19. And I just thought, I don't know, I'd been sort of talking with a friend who's a business coach about, what else I could be doing. And she sort of came up with this idea to actually have a physical event, and then COVID-19 hit. So I kind of thought, right, I just kind of felt called to do it. And sometimes I just do this. I'll get an idea, and I don't do a 5-year plan or whatever. I'm just like, look, it feels right. Let's put it out there. So I tested the market, and that's helpful for anyone wanting to, start something, just to put it out there and see. So I pre-launched it at a special annual rate during March. Say, look, does anyone want this? If enough people join by the end of April, I'll go ahead and, get the website, get the membership site built. Anyway, enough people joined. And then we officially launched just last month, which is July 2020.
Oh,
We've got
great.
members from across the globe. You get live exclusive webinar trainings on all aspects of leadership, including self-leadership. We do virtual meetups at the moment. They're monthly in 2 different types. So we have 2 meetups on the same day, my time, but it's, one is good for Americans, like the US kind of and similar time zones, and one for European and UK ones. And, women just kind of get to know one another. And the aim is just to help women become leaders in their field, whatever that looks like for them. So it could be if you're running your own business, it could be if you're working in a job and looking to, get ahead in your career, or you work for an NGO, or just, you're working in your local communities in advocacy of any kind. And it's a really lovely community. It's really supportive. And the idea is to just just, help more women find their voices and to elevate each other and lift each other up. So,
And do you have the website at this
yeah,
point?
it's veganwomensleadershipnetwork.com.
And we'll put that up at the
Thank
end of
you.
the show. And I just did want to mention that we had met, I guess, I don't know how many years ago it was before your book, Vegan Ventures. I had a spa at the time, which I stopped doing it now because of the virus, a vegan spa where I had all vegan products.
Yeah.
And that's how we met, which
That's
was
right.
great. And we've kept in touch all these years. So
I know. It's nice to hear from you again.
and how's the book doing? You're still,
Yeah, it's
promoting
good.
the
I mean,
book?
it's in October. It'll be 5 years since it was published, but it's all still relevant and people are still buying it because I tried to keep, the majority of the information is timeless, even in the marketing and PR sections. Obviously, things, social algorithms change and what have you. But I think the basic tenets of, when you're marketing about telling your story, that kind of thing, it's all still relevant. So yeah, people are still buying it and still starting lots of vegan businesses, which is what we want. So.
Great.
More vegan cheese, more vegan chocolate.
Vegan cheese. I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy some vegan cheese now because you've
Lovely.
piqued my curiosity. So
yeah,
Katrina,
there's so many. There's so many. So enjoy. You have to let me know how you get on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coordinating the time with us here. A whole day difference between us. And what part of Australia are you in?
I'm in Sydney.
In Sydney. Okay.
Yeah.
Never been there.
So we're
but
just coming out of winter now at the time of this interview. We're just about to go into spring as you're going into fall. So we're at the opposite and upside down.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. And I know that our viewers are going to enjoy it. And thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Preenan, author of I'm Lazy and I Love to Eat. And please join us next week for another edition of Phat Chat. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.